Warning: this video contains graphic depictions and scenes that may be unsuitable for some audiences. Viewer discretion is advised. Today, we are going to cover the many ways Skull Island will brutally plummet you to the bottom of the food chain in the bloodiest and most gory ways possible. This video contains some pretty distasteful content, so if you happen to have a weak stomach, we recommend you don't eat any red pasta while you're watching this video. If this is your first time watching our content, we would be thrilled if you could join us by hitting that subscribe button and ringing that bell. Still here? Great! Now to the 10 horrible ways you could brutally die in Skull Island. 1. Death from above. Skull Island's array of wildlife evolved in such a way that even some of the smallest creatures posed a fatal threat. The leafwings are the perfect example. Armed with a serrated bone trunk, this camouflaged animal could plummet from high altitudes into its unsuspecting victim. So let's get to the gory details. We have evidence that the leafwings could in fact sever human limbs. It is likely that these animals had an understanding of the anatomy of their prey, as they knew exactly where to strike in order to disable them and prevent them from running away or fighting back. The serrated edges on their trunks could have caused increased trauma to flesh, thus leading to an abundant amount of blood loss and certain death. 2. Zapped to death. If you thought the leafwings were horrible already, meet the psycho vulture. A close biological relative to the leafwing, but with evolutionary adaptations to not need camouflage and light receptors in their eyes. Its thermal vision allows it to exclusively locate potential prey. In this case, humans. If this wasn't freaky enough, these animals live up to their name by voluntarily ingesting a type of poisonous pufferfish which drives them on a barbaric craze to kill. To make matters even worse, the graphic novel Skull Island: Birth of Kong suggests that these animals were capable of aiming electric beams from their mouths onto any target. If this was aimed at a human, the electrical current would be enough to cause extremely painful and disabling muscle contractions and ventricular fibrillation, which could cause immediate death. This is without mentioning the horrible second-degree burns. As horrible as this sounds, you would be lucky if it ends here, as the psycho vultures would most likely gore into you once they get close enough. 3. Strangled and digested alive. Imagine you're walking through Skull Island's dense jungle as a way to refuge yourself from deadly airborne creatures. All of a sudden, you feel sticky tentacles rain on you from a tree above. This is not an octopus. You have just walked into the trap of a vine strangler, a species of flora-fauna that feed primarily on things like you. But how did you get into this sticky situation in the first place? While you were walking through the jungle, your footsteps caused vibrations on the ground, which triggered the roots of the vine strangler. This animal-plant hybrid then dropped its many tentacles on you and roped you up into its wide-open belly, where you will be digested alive for a whopping 72 hours. Let's talk about this horrifying experience. In the real, non-fictional world, the Venus flytrap will capture insects in a similar way, of course, without the tentacles. Once trapped, the fly would then be slowly digested by special enzymes secreted by the Venus trap. Our vine strangler here would very likely function in a similar way, except more gruesome. As you are trapped inside, the vine strangler will secrete enough enzymes to first dissolve your outer layer of skin, including your eyelids. Keep in mind that you are still alive at this stage. The enzymes would then proceed to consume through muscle tissue, and eventually, throughout the second day, your organs. At this point, you're probably dead. Most people, however, would have died of shock before the enzymes reached the muscle tissue. After the third day, all that remains is a husk, or in our case, a pile of slimy skeletons. 4. Crunched to death. If you are someone who is afraid of encountering big cats or sharks, this might just be your worst nightmare. The death jackal is known to be one of the most hyper-aggressive and, in these terms, one of the most hyper-brutal animals in Skull Island. Monarch's superspecies profile claims that this animal has the agility of a leopard and is armed with the bite of the great white shark. And if this wasn't bad enough, they come in packs. Let's talk about how fast this bite can kill. A great white shark can bite down with a force of 4,000 psi. To crunch through a human ribcage, the death jackal would only require a mediocre bite of 742 psi, just to flatten your upper torso. In the graphic novel Skull Island: Birth of Kong, we witnessed Helen Karsten, a survival expert, be the first to get torn to shreds by these ferocious animals in a matter of seconds. But even the death jackal pales in comparison against the next terrifying killer. 5. Slurped alive. Skip this section if spiders terrify you. In Skull Island, there crawls a gargantuan insect that literally skewers its prey from above. Meet the mother longlegs. This towering spider can grow up to 23 feet in height, though film and graphic novel depictions portray it as even larger. If you ever happen to run into a bamboo forest, make sure to look up. Now to the gory details. Once the mother longlegs manages to impale you, it would not comfort you to know that you will not die immediately. On the contrary, you are about to experience an excruciatingly painful death. Believe it or not, this unfortunate fella was actually still conscious for a couple of seconds, while witnessing the monstrosity that consumed him as his intestines were rapidly siphoned through the spider's long legs. To get into more detail, the spider's leg pierced through this individual's throat, which made him incapable of breathing or screaming, and it most likely damaged his spinal cord, which paralyzed him immediately. In addition to that, the spider's legs are equipped with orifices that siphon the victim's juices and intestines up the long shaft, leading to the creature's stomach. We aren't finished with the mother longlegs just yet. If you happen to be directly under the spider, expect to be covered in sticky tendrils, which are dropped directly from the spider's open stomach. Like the vine strangler, these tendrils will lift you up into a slimy grave, sentencing you to a slow, agonizing death. Skull Island monsters seem to have a thing for leaving nasty leftovers. The next creature, however, leaves behind something more exotic.
There are 2,700 robocalls made every second in the U.S. You might have been on the receiving.
6. Get stick-bugged. There is only one place on the planet where even trees themselves would like to eat you. Skull Island is home to the largest stick bug that has ever walked the earth. The spore mantis is actually a large, slug-like parasite encased in a redwood-sized tree trunk. This giant slug, however, is equipped with bone-crunching mandibles. If you ever happen to make the spore mantis angry enough to eat you, getting crunched to bits will be the less humiliating part. Once your remains are inside the parasite, its protein-rich sap will encase you in an exquisite crystalline amber, revealing your crystal-clear remains to the outside world once again. In the 2017 film Kong Skull Island, Jack Chapman bumped into a spore mantis that was not as large as the ones described in Monarch's superspecies profiles, meaning that this creature was very likely a juvenile. Had it been as large as its other comrades, Jack would have probably been killed by the stick bug instead. 7. Chewed to death. Swamps have been the perfect brewing pot for evolution to take its notoriously dark and twisted turns. To the unsuspecting eye, these harmless plants seem to be simple swamp trees, but what lies beneath is perhaps one of the most terrifying ways to die on this island. Swamp locusts use their tree-like legs as camouflage to make themselves indistinguishable from the surrounding vegetation. The real terror is found inside that lamprey-like mouth, which is home to many sharp backwards-facing teeth. In the real world, these teeth are similar to the Congo's Goliath tigerfish, which are built to grip onto prey while inflicting outstanding amounts of trauma. Once you find yourself unlucky enough to be inside its mouth, you still have a lot more to endure. The swamp locust's tooth-infested gastrointestinal tract is a single continuous chamber that makes up almost its entire body. The backward-facing teeth will make it simply impossible to even think about escape. Getting punctured and chewed from all angles would cause any unfortunate individual to suffer a rather quick but most grotesque death. 8. Floating caves of doom. Let's pretend that for whatever reason, you managed to escape the swamp locust and found refuge on a nearby patch of floating land. You enter a cave in hopes that the danger had already passed. But then, This mosasaur-sized crocodilian feeds on animals and people like you who were tricked into thinking this was just another floating patch of dirt and trees. Given that crocodilians have the strongest bite forces of all time, it's not too far-fetched to state that this monster is likely to have the strongest bite force of all the creatures in Skull Island. This would be enough to crunch through you, your friends, and your boat. Assuming you didn't get crushed by those teeth, you probably are now sliding down this animal's esophagus. Once you splash into the Siren Jaw's dark, murky stomach, you start feeling an intense pain on your skin. You are now being showered and digested by the crocodile's extremely corrosive digestive acids. Crocodilians in the real world stimulate their digestive process thanks to deoxygenated blood that is directed to the stomach. This blood is rich in acidic carbon dioxide, which stimulates the production of the most acidic stomach acid known in nature, capable of dissolving flesh and bones in record time. Consequently, crocodiles are known to secrete stomach acid 10 times faster than any other animal. What does this mean for you? Since you are now in the most corrosive and acidic environment on the planet, you can expect to be turned into a bloody sludge in a matter of moments. But could being showered by acid hurt more than being boiled to death? 9. Boiled alive. Yes, you heard that right. There are creatures on this island that could potentially boil you alive. But before making it into the boiling pot, you first have to get caught by one of these. The Meyer squid is a giant cephalopod found in Skull Island that resembles a hybrid between the Pacific giant octopus and a squid. Your trip to the boiling pot could begin in one of two areas. Number 1, it wouldn't take much effort for the squid to catch you with its 10 tentacles. Given that this is a freshwater squid, being close to a lake makes you fair game to get snatched from land and into the stomach of this monster. Number 2, this squid is equipped with beak-like jaws that are on top of a complex muscle formation that allows them to spin. So fast, in fact, that this rotary motion could create a vortex-like whirlpool that sucks any creature unlucky enough to get swallowed by the squid. Your trip to the afterlife does not end here. You're now about to experience what it is to be inside a biothermal creature's stomach. Once you plunge into the squid's throat, you begin to suffer second-degree burns. This is because you're traveling close to the squid's internal ink sac. This ink is used as a defense mechanism to burn any potential predators alive. If you haven't died on your way to the creature's stomach, here you will. At this point, besides being dissolved by digestive acids, you are suffering from severe third-degree burns. At this point, you don't feel any pain at all. You're fortunate that it's now over. 10. Shredded to death. In Kong Skull Island, Jack suffered possibly one of the most brutal ways to die in the Monsterverse. Contrary to what you may think, getting eaten by one of the larger skull crawlers would be better than most of the deaths discussed previously. But getting killed by a juvenile skull crawler would be far worse. The first reason why this would hurt more is simply because juvenile skull crawlers have a denser concentration of backward-facing teeth than the adult specimens. If you were to get eaten by an adult, you would simply get swallowed whole. But being eaten by a juvenile means you get brutally chewed and then swallowed.
Oh, shit.
Getting clamped on by a juvenile skullcrawler means that any maneuver trying to escape this creature will possibly cause more damage, as these backward-facing teeth are constantly puncturing areas like your arms, legs, and upper torso. This high concentration of teeth also means that they will likely strike an artery in any of these areas, leading to severe blood loss and imminent death. To put this into perspective, getting eaten by a juvenile skullcrawler is similar to being placed on an Iron Maiden while having the doors slammed shut on you many times over and over again. After seeing the many horrifying ways you could die in Skull Island, do you think that you could survive living in the most dangerous biome of all time? Tell us how you would avoid getting killed in the comments. If you are really interested in putting your survival skills and island knowledge to the test, make sure to take our quiz to see if you have the knowledge it takes to survive. We hope you enjoyed our video, so if you want to see more, make sure you like and subscribe. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.